Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly webinar series, Embracing Change. Last week, we had Ahmed Hussein join us talking about lessons learned from Wall Street, from serving large family offices in Europe, and how to live in flow. Today, we have a guest who's based in India, Ravi Chaudhry. Welcome, Ravi, and who's been the former chairman of 4 Tata Group companies and has written a book, Quest for Exceptional Leadership. So today, we'd like to welcome Ravi and everyone who's on the call right now to discuss a topic on shaping your future before it shapes you. So what does that mean, and what are the fundamentals that would drive the ability to shape your future versus allowing life to shape it for you? Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you. Thank you, Faisal, for your very kind words. And a special thank you to Jonathan for connecting us. I'm quite excited to have this opportunity to interact with you and your wonderful group of family business leaders from all over the world. Kinetic Care is truly an amazing initiative. It focuses on things that really matter in life. My compliments to you for highlighting the obvious. It's a great learning for me that physical and mental health and emotional well-being have to be a non-negotiable component of one's life. I propose to explore today some of the issues in this COVID world that could have a direct or lateral impact on one's health and well-being, and consequently on one's role as an individual, as a family, and as a leader. What I really hope is that at the end of this hour, each of us will have at least one transformational idea for personal growth, one transformational idea for a truly aligned family, and one transformational idea for our business to cope with future.
Wow, okay, that's a tall order. Let the party begin.
Let's aim for it. I was addressing a conference of global investors a few weeks ago. The dialogue started with some of them referring to the present times as not merely volatile, but dangerous.
Okay.
I went along with it as a signal for extreme caution. But I added that if we look at the arc of history across centuries, we find that every calamity or catastrophe eventually leads to a better world. From formation of small kingdoms to nations, to the formation of European Union, ASEAN after World War II, and the great phenomena of globalization that enabled strangers in different countries to become friends and collaborate in joint ventures. Now also the world will move on. As always, the aftermath will inevitably lead to a new set of winners and losers. The context and the potential impact of what we are going through was beautifully explained by Joshua Remo in his book, The Seventh Sense. 300 years ago, he wrote, the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution began demolishing the foundations of an ancient order. What seemed permanent, kings, popes, tribal chiefs, and feudal lords were all undone. Today, a new big hammer is cracking our world. Quite naturally, our concern is where shall we be in the new emerging matrix of champions and also rands? To get a sense of what is happening, one needs two things. A telescope to take a distant view and try and forecast, and a microscope to decide what to do here and now. The problem arises when you look through a telescope with one eye and simultaneously with a microscope with the other eye. I'm told it leads to headache, perhaps even a brain ache. So we need to distinctly separate the two processes. First, let's take a far ahead view. As Lenin once said, there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. We are going through one such period. We were all doing our work, running our businesses reasonably successfully, and then an invisible virus shook up the entire planet. In a flash, the sense of continuity and familiarity vanished. Our emotional security was challenged, but our past beliefs, habits, and prejudices still stay with us, which make it difficult to accept reality. We are all the time being bombarded with new inputs. We develop a feeling of dis-ease to ensure that dis-ease doesn't become a disease that could impact our health. We have to modify our beliefs, disown our prejudices, and alter our habits. But that's not easy. We receive an avalanche of inputs. We keep learning all the time, and yet we don't change. Why is that? Strangely, when you learn, you don't change. Only when you absorb, you change. Just before the webinar, I made myself a cup of coffee, and I added some sugar in it. But when I sipped it wasn't sweet. I had not stirred the sugar. The sugar didn't get absorbed. Likewise, when we receive inputs, if the learning is not absorbed, the change doesn't happen. We are unconsciously sticking to conventional beliefs and routinely formed convictions, a tyranny of habits. We don't realize that this diminishes our propensity to learn what needs to be learned the most, and that is asking the right questions. How does one do that? Mind is the reservoir of past experiences, emotions, and thoughts, which manifest as ego and stored as memories, and give the idea of who I think I am. For example, I know a lot, I have a lot of wealth, I am powerful, and I can buy anything. Or else, I may feel I have no money, but I know I can meet any challenges. It will be helpful temporarily, at least, if we empty our minds of all our thoughts, so that we are open to fresh thoughts and new experiences. I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre who said that man is not the sum of what he has already, but rather the sum of what he doesn't yet have and of what he could have. With this starting premise, we are now ready to start the process of exploring and shaping our future. But one important caution: continuing to focus only on what you are good at may not be the best thing to do. As Yuval Harari reminds us in his beautiful writings, strangeness is the new normal. Your past experience, in fact, the collective experience of the entire humanity, is no longer a reliable guide. Humans as individuals and humankind as a whole will increasingly deal with things nobody has encountered before. You will need a lot of flexibility and great reserves of emotional balance. You will have to repeatedly let go of the things which you know best and learn to feel at home with the unknown. For that, we need to evolve and observe with a brand new sense of awareness. If you accept that, then we are ready to shape the future before it shapes us. I'll take a pause here before we now experience the discovery of awareness. Anything you'd like to add or ask at this stage, Faisal?
In terms of questions, if anybody can please put in the chat or in the Q&A. So tell me, what you just shared right now, I mean, you've advised governments, you're on different various boards, you speak and are advisors to a number of CEOs. How are they responding to this strangeness, newness, dangerous, whatever the word is that we can describe of what is here or coming our way and is no longer? So what is the response that you're seeing? Are people embracing it? Are they just tolerating it? Are they praying that it goes away? What are you seeing?
Well, you know, when I am spending time with corporate boards on their reviews and strategy dialogues, I start with asking 3 questions. First, can we separate what is predictable and what is not predictable? Second, can you put on one side what is controllable and on the other side what is not controllable? And within these 2 parameters, can you devise a strategy? Can you devise a way forward which is not dependent on the direction of future trajectory or the speed of revival? Which basically means willingness to completely break from the past. It doesn't mean break from the past. It basically is saying, be prepared to break from the past. And I think I am getting a good response for that, because as we go into it, we go into the details of which quintile of the business they are in today. You know, if you are in the top quintile and you are the least impacted or favorably impacted, then you are very lucky. But I warn them that don't think you will be like this forever. Where there is more profit, more success, there's more competition around the corner. And success leads to vulnerability of a very high order. And if you are in the middle quintile, then you are still very lucky, because you can now take action to capture the sunshine when it comes. But if you are in the bottom quintile, then you have to do totally different things altogether. Forget about annual budgets. Prepare monthly or quarterly plans and make weekly cash flows, and then see how it goes. And I think as we sit down with them, I find there are lots of people who understand this. But I think they just need someone to ensure them that, yes, a break from the past perhaps is necessary.
But okay, so you share this with them, they understand it on a left brain reality. But what about the action? Do you see them resisting? Do you see, what are you seeing and what are the mistakes people are making? Let's get tangible on this.
Okay, well, I think that's where I'll spend a few minutes on the second issue, okay, which you have asked me to speak about, awareness.
All right.
And in these 7 to 8 minutes, the purpose will be to sow the seed so that each of us can start questioning our assumptions about ourselves, our life, and our business. Because as long as we are too tightly wedded to our assumptions, change can't take place. Yeah. You may have the idea that you are changing, but really nothing happens. But I also say that please don't take what I say with a sense of finality. Keep questioning and keep asking how to take a call on what's relevant and what's not. Normally, even today, when the world is changed, we notice only the things which are important to us. Remember only the things important to us. We look at other things but don't log in. And more important, most of our attention goes to what you are looking at. We need to pay attention to where you are looking from. I think Max Planck, I admire that man. He said that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at also change.
Yes.
So you have to be scenario aware as well as self-aware. Be conscious of being conscious. Then you can recognize some additional resources which you need to cope with the future. And I'm referring to the resources that lie dormant within each individual.
Within, yes.
I'll use the traditional term and call it inner wealth. But to understand inner wealth, and I'll try and explain it in the next 4 to 5 minutes, please don't listen to the preconceived meaning that my words carry. Listen instead to where my words are coming from and where you receive them. No prior knowledge is required for this discovery, which we are going to make, I hope. Everybody is fit for this journey. There are no preconditions that you must meditate every day or be committed or be strong. All I say is that right now, if you can empty your mind of all your thoughts and past experiences, beliefs, and prejudices, then we are set. Now, when you do that, when you have no memories of the past, you have nothing to look at, what do? You don't look outward, you start looking inwards. But as long as you have even one thought and even one memory, it's enough to drive you towards that which you can't get away from because it's dear to you. So for a moment, let's assume there's nothing dear to you. Then you start looking inwards. And now comes the moment of truth issue. All along in our life, we have been gathering something in our hand, something in our head, and something in our heart. Today, if I was to ask you, and you have to make a choice, what would you choose hereafter? Knowledge in your head, wealth in your hand, or awareness in your heart? I would urge all listeners to take a pause here, because I'm going to make a stunning comment. If you choose awareness, knowledge and wealth will follow. Awareness is an all-pervading experience. It empowers you by unleashing the potential within to re-look at things. It gives you back the remote control of your life. You grab it. That's what enables one to realize that you are the writer, producer, and the director of your own life script. And now is always the right time to do it. I mean, because it's the only time. Just check your watch. Unbelievable. It's now again. If I was to ask you, have you lived 30 days or have you lived the same day 30 times in the last 1 month? Awareness makes it possible to not only live each day, but live each moment. You consistently discover a new you. You feel that today is the first day of the rest of your life. Your future then does not depend on what happens. Your future depends on the thing that get your attention. And this, if I was to sum up in the last 4 or 5 minutes what I said, attention pays attention to a lot of things. But when attention starts paying attention to attention, then there is an awareness that introduces you to your inner wealth, which in reality is your inherent wisdom. That's when you discern what is relevant from your perspective and what's not. You know, awareness, how does it impact you as a person now when you are coming across the need to make choices? Let me share just 2 or 3 examples. When you are aware, you get into a regular conversation with your conscience. And you learn that the voice of conscience is so delicate that it is easy to stifle it. But it's so clear that it's impossible to mistake it. You realize that progress comes not by removing obstacles that others set for you. It comes from removing obstacles that you set for yourself. And finally, you involve an open mind and an open heart. And you are ever ready hereafter to renew and recreate the foundation for a new you and a fully aligned family. We'll now take a pause before we dissect and reinvent your role as a leader, which will come to the crux of the question that you had asked.
So now that I've understood the beautifully eloquent way of that you've shared, now again, I've understood it here. Have I truly understood it here? Right? So how do I begin to declutter? Because that is what you're asking, right? When you're talking about the past, you're talking about the future, to declutter the memories, to declutter the thoughts. And how do I go about doing this? What are the tangible ways that I can go from the being that you're referring to, which is my inner core, my inner wealth, to doing, because that is my engaging with the world as I go moment to moment. So please guide me, guide us through that process.
Well, it's not something which is to know. It is something which is to be experienced. And for experiencing, the most important thing that comes in at the first step is that a lot of what you see, are you willing to log into it? Are you willing to understand the differences? How do we look at the world? You know, we all live under the same sky, but we all have a different view of the horizon. A great leader or a great thinker may at times think that, look, he has a 120-degree view, he has a 180-degree view, and some people may think they have a 360-degree view, and they take their decisions on that basis. Now, I've been through that, and I always thought when I took even a 90-degree view, because, hey, come on, we have to take a decision quickly. Time is of essence, speed is important. Which is perhaps true to an extent. But I think we are now moving to a totally new realm of thoughts. even if you have a 360-degree view of things, this view is from your perspective. If you have to be totally aware of all the opportunities and problems and concerns that could impact the direct or indirect consequence of your decisions, and therefore whether they help you achieve your objectives or not, you have to take one more step. You have to go into the shoes and perspectives of those who may be impacted by your decision and take another 360-degree view from their perspective. If you can take a 720-degree view, 360 degrees from your perspective and 360 degree from the perspective of the rest of the world, which capitalism tends to ignore. We are all products of capitalism. Leadership is not the problem today. Leadership, as we know, is dead. So we really have to start thinking what 720-degree view means, what's happening in the world today. And we cannot continue with our usual objectives of trying to make the best of the things, following the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law, and continuing to lobby and lobby till everything can come in our favor. So I think this is the change which we need to talk about, speak about. If you take a 720-degree view, everything you do will lead to success. Of course, there is a lateral benefits when you take a 720-degree view. You also, by default, by nature, which is inherent wisdom, acquire two more traits. Trait of compassion and the trait of transparency. If there's time, I'll talk about it later. But I think a 720-degree view, which is a wholesome view, which I have covered at great length in my book, Quest for Exceptional Leadership, is, I think, is a foolproof way to foolproof your future.
But again, you started with the element of time. You started with the element of urgency, right? And at the end of the day, the other 360, when there's multiple stakeholders, right, that are impacted by it, it becomes a lot of other 360s, right? Because it's not one, it's multiple 360s. So how is that practically possible? I know you're talking about moving from me to we, right? Which is the capitalistic, moving from the capitalism to we-ness, right? Which I completely get. But when you speak to leaders, I know you're going to talk about leadership and the existing form of leadership is dead. Again, are they can agree with you conceptually, but are they able to take the time and energy to execute at that level?
I think the obstacles lie not in reality. It's accepting the obstacles and finding a way around it. Of course, you know, what happens is that every leader has to come across issues on the fork.
Yeah.
Which way to take. Now you can say that, okay, I'll make a compromise. I'll reduce my profit a little bit. Now, that's not adequate. Because you are not changing your attitude.
Yes.
You are still having the old mindset. You are counting your profit.
Yes.
But if you look at with the perspective of a new heart set,
yes,
then that compromise will not mean a compromise. It will be looked as a necessary sacrifice for happiness, for living in this world together in peace. You know, there's a beautiful concept in African folklore called Ubuntu. It basically, it's a lovely concept. Now, it basically means that I am what I am because you are what you are.
Yes.
I am what I am because we all are what we are. And there is more that unites the world than what divides the world. So if your objective, as long as your objective is maximization of profit, or all stakeholders, you will still quantify how much. No.
Yes.
When you are looking with compassion and transparency, let me explain what I mean by compassion and transparency. In the corporate folklore, you hear the word very often, I have a lot of empathy.
Yeah.
And people are very happy. Oh, I have a lot of empathy for them. Now, what's the difference? Empathy means I see you, I relate to your problems,
Yes.
I understand your problems.
Yes.
Compassion means I see you, I relate to you, I understand your problems, and I'm going to do something about it.
Okay.
Now, transparency, we like to do our business like this, with our hand closed, because we are scared that if we open our hand, what we have will fall off. Of course, if you have something to hide. But what is stopping us from doing our business like this, transparently, with openness? If you have a 720-degree awareness, if you have compassion from the heart, compassion is not condition. Compassion basically means unconditional love.
Exactly.
Not only for the people you know, but for everybody around the world. If you have that compassion, and if you have the transparency, and if you have the 720 awareness, how can you not make profit? Of course you will, because you are bright, you are brain, you know what to do. You may not have $100 billion in your pocket or reserves, but who needs that anyway? But eventually, I think I came to this conclusion that those who are looking after only wealth, everything I'll say is like water over the duck. But if you want wealth and happiness, then there is something in what I say. I think I did share with you when we last spoke, one of my very favorite quotes, that if you want happiness for a few hours, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go and have a game of tennis or golf or fishing. If you want happiness for a month, get married. This is disputed. I also dispute it. If you want happiness for a few years, then inherit a fortune or win a lottery. But if you want a lifetime of happiness, then you must make others happy. No, if I don't see, wealth can't give you happiness. It can only make you less miserable while you are unhappy. But if happiness, you can't be happy by yourself. Happiness, you can't be happiness only with your friends. Happiness is universal. So I think I see, we are moving into a new phase of human enterprise altogether now. And if there's time, I'll talk about it. But let me come to the more issues which are relevant to what we have discussed so far.
So when you're So coming back to this element, now you're saying you're talking about we, right, versus me, and coming it from the leadership perspective, right? And obviously, once you move into that, it's actually a win-win, right? And profitability normally does go up. But let's say out of every 10 sets of companies that you advise on the corporate board level, how many are willing to bring that and execute that at the corporate level? Is it a minority, or is it becoming a majority as you go?
Well, you know, I did my own analysis, and I wouldn't say it is a research based on algorithms, but my own network and the people I met. And I found that when I started this role 10 years ago, when my book first came out, I found that not more than 5 to 7% of the people were really, really accepting the ideologies we are talking about.
Yeah.
And 60 to 70% were absolutely across the fence. They had no interest in listening to what we are discussing.
Yeah.
And the best part is that the remaining was sitting on the fence.
Oh, that's good. At least that's
to
good.
take a call. They were listening. They were ready. And that's how the concept of CSR came up.
Okay.
Corporate social responsibility. And then I told them that, look, even that period is gone now. And I explained to them why by relating that, and I covered in my book as well, that we are entering a 5th phase of human enterprise globally today. And COVID has hastened that process. You know, lots of changes which were taking place slowly are moving very, very rapidly now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this transition to the 5th phase I'm going to talk about in the next 4 minutes will illustrate that.
Okay.
The first phase of human enterprise was strong fish eating weak fish. That was the era of the British Empire, the Turkish conquests, the Japanese imperialism, and a whole lot of wars which used to take place. Then the second phase was big fish eating small fish. This was the birth of the public limited company. When many small people with small capital could form a big company, and because by virtue of the size, they could earn much more. And the interesting part was that if they made losses, the state would accept the loss, but if they make profit, they could keep the profits. There was no taxation before public limited company came up. That was the birth of corporate taxation. The first public limited company in the world was in Florence, but the most well-known is East India Company in year 1600, followed by 1602, the Dutch East India Company, and 1606, the Virginia Tobacco Company, which started the main Boston Tea Party story. So during this period, cronyism was born, and the capitalism took shape, and it has been going on for the last 3 centuries. And it was so bad that President Rutherford Hayes in 1876 said that we are no longer a nation for the people, of the people, and run by the people. We have become a nation of the corporations, for the corporations, and by the corporations. And he was very disgusted. Third phase was fast fish eating slow fish, the birth of Google, Amazon, eBay, Apple, etc. Fourth phase was intelligent fish eating dumb fish. That was when the rest of the world, like Infosys, Microsoft, Alibaba, Tencent, Huawei, and companies in Brazil started coming up. And they said, okay, we're going to change the rules of the game because it can't all belong to the West. Now, the point I'm making is that all those who succeeded are big in substance, they are strong in resolve, they are intelligent, and they are fast in their operations. We are now moving to a fifth phase. The phases denote not that they were periods in history, but a new trait was required to succeed. And the fifth phase is realistic fish eating unrealistic fish. And the new realism in the word is that you want to succeed, your objectives must be aligned with societal expectations and you must take care of nature. Without that, you won't survive. So today it's not a question of you waiting to see what happens. No. I think on this issue of realism, every institution, every corporation is facing a Kodak moment. If you don't change, you will be dead.
When you say
and I think this is having an impact.
So when you say societal expectations, I mean, who is the one that's going to determine those expectations? And we know that each society, and if you talk about the world in general, that's one thing, but each society is skewed based on their own culture and their own history. So how does one define that when it comes to planning at the corporate level or at the board level?
I have read many books which give this view very vehemently, but I have a slightly different approach to it. And I believe that there is more that unites the world than what divides the world.
Yeah.
We have a 5 billion challenge in the world today. The 5 billion people in the world are not a part of the mainstream. And for them, poverty will no longer be destiny. And this is the next phase of the world we'll move to. The winners will be those who realize this realism. Cultures, you must take care of the poor in your country. I mean, what's culture to do with it? How can rich get away with taxes, not paying any tax at all? Because you have 50 tax havens in the world, which are supported by the richest nations of the world. So these are the things that I think which can't be put under the carpet anymore. So I tell companies, get out of tax havens before you are caught. But then I find almost every company has a tax haven account.
Yeah, well, it's not about being caught, right? Most of it is still legit. It's the law that allows it. It's not about being legal or illegal, right? It's the ability to wiggle. Right?
That's
so now you talk about societal expectations, and then you talk about, so again, you're going back to the we concept, right? So give me examples of companies, if you have examples, that are actually already doing this and are very successful. And I'm sure that the profits have gone through the roof, so that some of us can maybe emulate or learn from them.
I can give you many, many examples, but I think the one I'm most fond of giving is the Danish oil and gas company, which declared, I think 15 years ago, that they will have zero fossil fuel in their corporate offerings. And they have done that in a decade. And they are the darlings. They still make a lot of profit. So far, we see a lot of hype in people committing. Take plastics packaging, for example. Now, Levers has committed, Unilever, that in the next 5 to 7 years, or 10 years, I forget, they'll have zero plastics in their packaging. Now, I was talking to a person who heads the Plastics Global Ocean Coalition, and he mentioned, you also know that person, he said that if all that has been promised about plastics by the companies so far, it will only reduce plastics in the ocean by 7%.
Wow.
That's all. And the rest will carry on. And the impact, while today we have 1 ton of plastic for 3 tons of fish in the oceans, by 2050 at the current rate, we'll have 3 tons of plastic for 3 tons of fish by 2050. So we won't survive. The climate change is, I mean, what we will get up only when Manhattan or Amsterdam or Mumbai or Jakarta or Singapore or Hong Kong is totally swamped by an ocean and destroyed. We'll wake up then. And then you say, oh, you know, this is unthinkable. It's unthinkable because we refuse to think, because we refuse to see the impact of our suicide pact. The global leaders today have a suicide pact to destroy the planet. How, you have to awaken them up. But awakening must start. It won't start from the top. It won't start from the politicians. It can only start from businessmen who make their politicians win the elections, or make the politicians stay in power as dictators, either way. In fact, the difference between democracy and dictatorship is the narrowest today all over the world. But this is going to be the very positive impact of this transformation. A new hammer is cracking the world. If we sit quietly like an anvil, we'll be cracked. But if we strengthen our resolve and change our attitudes and accept the new realism and stop saying, you know, for decades, corporate leaders have been saying that the corporate objectives and societal expectations eventually converge. And my response is yes, they are like the 2 tracks of a railway line only. They seem to converge in the distance, but they never do. Make it happen now. And you watch, you will, if Jim Collins was to come back and write in 2040 a book on companies that last, the only new companies, which I call the realistic companies, will be in that list. Hereafter, in the pro-COVID era, a company that makes only money will be a poor company.
So now let's take a step back. These are the leaders, this is the direction, this is what's happening. What do we do for our children in order to instill this kind of thought process? Or is this already happening without us even saying anything at their level? I'm talking, let's say, people in their early 20s, late teens. Are they already having this thought process from your experience?
Well, we are going to see a generation which will have to rediscover their ideology, their thoughts, and whether the educators will learn from this or not is a big question mark. There are 2 issues in the world which I always talked about: how to decorrupt leadership today and how to make tomorrow's leaders incorruptible. But before we do that, we have to make sure that the tomorrow's generation, each of them, must either be employed or must either find it easy to be an entrepreneur. If he doesn't have a source of living, then how will he play an important role? In fact, everything that the business is doing today is like is a Model T moment in history. It's just too elementary. We have to go ahead now. I mean, there's a separate issue on the role of innovation we need, the role of technology that we need to talk about. You know, I think this is possibly one moment when I can share with you the 3 or 4 things I tell people when I am asking them about what they should take care of in the days to come. And I basically tell them is that, look, reappraise first thing, reappraise and reinsure that the family council and the leadership team is fully aligned. Ultimately, we as business leaders have to play the major role in tackling issues of creating jobs. Governments are not going to be able to do that. The governments are the poorest in the world today. Which government has money? So it's the business leaders of today who have to take the lead. So for that, they must have a fully aligned leadership team and a family council, embracing reality and having agility. Second, you must reappraise what I call crop. Your customers, have they disappeared? Your risks, your offerings. Is there a demand for what you are offering? And prospects. So that's the crop. Scan 3 Bs, biases, beliefs, and business model. If you have the crop cleared, then only you can look at business model, bereft of beliefs and bereft of biases. And realign the 4 pillars of rejuvenation, the 4 Ps. Purpose, that's the subject I love talking about. People, partnerships, and processes. And the most important thing which I tell people who have to take decisions, that don't hesitate to seek help in these perilous times. It's good to have a sounding board or a counselor or an advisor, one who can show you the mirror. You may not agree, but you must listen. And this, I believe, is once in many lifetimes opportunity to completely transform and reinvent ourselves as a person, as a family, as a leader. One who can navigate any challenge, anytime.
Amazing. Now let me take a step back. I mean, with all that you just shared, I mean, that's a heavy, heavy load. You know, when in families you have 2 spouses that are there to complement each other and to run a household, to raise a family, to build that. Do you feel that leadership today at a singular level, I mean, I'm hearing more and more co-leaderships, co-CEOs that are working together to be able to execute what you just mentioned. Do you think that is going to be the future, where it will not be one single person that is able to handle all that you described? Because, you know, all of us have blind spots. All of us have weaknesses. All of us, I mean, we can hire the COO, the CFO, the CIO, the whatever. But at the end of the day, won't it become like a marriage where you will end up having 2 CEOs and co-CEOs to run these incredibly realistic businesses that you're referring to?
I don't like the word marriage because it's related to divorces.
Okay.
I totally agree with the very crisp observations you made. And I think I only support it by saying that I see the organization structures of the future moving from pyramids to pancakes. It will not be a factor of your experience or years of service or your rank. It will depend on the ideas you can come forward with. And the ideas will come forward from any age. And I you know, when I talk of creating an agile organization, I give real examples of companies where the best ideas have come from the lowest rungs.
Yeah.
So today, any agile team to solve problems or look at the future is composed of people across ages, profiles, backgrounds, and rank. So it will be what I call shared leadership. It's just not co-CEOs. If people are aligned, then only it's possible. I don't use the word alignment easily. When I talk to corporate boards on alignment, they often ask me, Ravi, you have spent 4 hours with us. On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate our factor of leadership alignment? And I tell them, okay, let's do it at the end of the day today, this question. And at the end of the day, very often, one of them comes back and tells me, I got the answer. In terms of alignment of a family or alignment of a team, you are either at 0 or you are at 10. There's nothing in between.
So how do we achieve that? You're saying the pancake leadership is the way to achieve that, to remove all of those hierarchies, etc. But also numbers will matter, right? I mean, if you have thousands of people in an organization, it's a little more challenging to run an organization at the pancake level, right?
People respond when they see transparency. The important thing, we need to get out of the PR concept. There's no public relations. We want to build human relations, the real one-to-one relationships. People shouldn't have to check what you say.
Okay.
If they believe you, I often say there's a magic of 4 words which can build nations, organizations, and families. And those 4 words are, I believe in you. You convey to others, I believe in you. You will get the same echo back, I believe in you too, sir. But this is not 4 words said or written in the vision statement or put on the posters around the organization. It comes in the day-to-day conversations, day-to-day interactions and responses.
And we can begin with our children, right? We can begin with our children.
Yes, yes. It has to start with a great leader is always a great family.
All right, Ravi, we've got 2 more minutes left. Please, any closing remarks you'd like to wrap up with before we let everybody continue their day, depending on where they are. In Europe, it's lunchtime, and for some of us in Dubai, it's a little later. In Hong Kong, it's either dinner or post-dinner time.
Well, I think I'll repeat what I said earlier, that don't hesitate to seek help. And I'll start with my favorite, one of my favorite books, Tuesdays with Murray, by Mitchell Bohm. And he is a professor who has cancer, and he knows he won't have to live long. And one of the students comes and interviews him every Tuesday. And he has written a book on what he discussed with them those Tuesdays. And the central theme of the book is that when you are born, you need someone to hold your hand. And when you are about to die, you again need someone to hold your hand. The secret of a successful life, a happy life, and a good life is to realize and willingly accept that in between these 2 moments also, you need someone else to hold your hand. This keeps you away from arrogance, and it brings in humility and destroys ignorance. nobody can stop you, because this is the process to discover the inherent wisdom, which is yours. Everybody in the world is a perfect human being, provided he lets go these inhibitions and the obstacles he has created for himself. With these words, I wish you a wonderful group, a great success. And I know many of them who have written to me that they are joining, and I invite them to feel free to share feedback with you or me, because we'll share with each other and raise any question that they may have on the next steps they wish to take to carry this dialogue forward. My sincere thanks. It has been wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Thank you for sharing all of that wisdom. I know you've been advising governments, CEOs, boards, and obviously corporates in the Tata Group as well. Thank you everyone for being here today. Next week, we're going to have Roger King back talking about family office beyond wealth. So again, going beyond the money as you mentioned. And after that, Dr. Muhammad, who's going to share and discuss how access to his medical records saved his life. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the honor and privilege to be here to share. And once again, thank you, Ravi, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share. And we will share with everyone the title of your book and a few other things that so that they have reference to what you do and take it from there. Okay? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
It's been a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.